Hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. Today we have a Terran versus Zerg. This is from the recent IEM tournament, so let's go ahead and introduce these players. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of Ohana, we have the blue Terran player. He is well known. He has multiple GSL Grand Final victories under his belt, but will he claim the title of the winner of IEM? His name is LGIMMVP. And his opponent, definitely not quite as well known and does not have quite the name that MVP has, but still an up-and-coming player this IEM tournament. Spawning in the bottom right-hand corner as the red Zerg. He is very, very unknown, but he is making his breakout appearance, and he has taken down numerous fabulous players. Let's see if he can take down the great beast of MVP himself. His name is Vortix. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am back after such a long time. Oh my god, it's been about two and a half, almost 3 weeks now. But finally, it's good to be back, as I am now finally moved into my new place. And yeah, I finally have the opportunity to cast once again. So look forward to seeing more casts out of me. Also, of course, with a new casting setup, that means new casting quirks, I would want to say. So please give me some feedback about the audio quality. Give me feedback about, you know, if you see any lag on the videos, like anything that you really want to see. I'm also going to be experimenting a little bit more. Before I was using just good old Windows Movie Maker. I know, please punch me in the face. But now I'm going to be just making that switch over to Sony Vegas that I hear most people end up using. And while we watch this little worker-on-worker action, what a ballsy little drone. And by ballsy, I mean not really, because he didn't even check up the ramp. But he sees that there is that expansion over there. But while we see all of that going on, I just want to say, hopefully you guys do decide to leave a comment, even like the video, as it really does help me out and kind of gauge what to improve on and what not. So in the meanwhile, we are going to be seeing some pretty normal stuff coming out of MVP. Outside of the fact that this command center was CC first, that is a fairly greedy build, and it looks like Vortex not really going to be doing anything big to punish it. It's just going to continue to drone up, make just 2 Zerglings to put on a little bit of tiny pressure, but he's not going to try and go for some kind of giant bust without really droning up at all. Now we do see that that barracks is finished up. It's going to be able to start producing a couple of Marines, and that 1 Marine, maybe 2 Marines should be ready before these 2 Zerglings end up making their way all the way across the map. And we do see even one of these Zerglings just playing a little bit safe, picking off that SCV, does not want it to cause any kind of trouble, throwing down a bunker or something with any kind of potential late Marine pressure. And for the most part, it's just going to be there to scout. Now, one thing that MVP does notice that's very, very important is that, you know, Vortex does not have any gas. So this does mean MVP is going to feel pretty comfortable to just kind of like expand, or I mean, he's already expanded, but he's going to feel pretty comfortable to just add on a couple of additional things. It looks like he's going to actually be going for that reactor Hellion style play that we actually see a lot, that honestly MVP himself has really popularized. So we'll end up seeing how that plays out. But MVP is going to feel pretty comfortable knowing that his opponent is not going to be able to really properly deal with any kind of fast Hellion play or any kind of early Hellion aggression with those speedlings. So at least as long as he does not overcommit, he should be able to keep them alive, maintain that map control, and stop that creep spread. Now we do actually see, let's take a look at the unit counting station, 4 queens out already, and on 2 bases. And wow, actually doing a really nice job of kind of scouting around, making sure that nothing funky is going on. But anyways, with 4 queens, that is going to allow him to get out these additional creep tumors very, very quickly. Now, we do see that the first 2 Hellions are going to be popping out in just a little second, and they will be able to start doing things like clearing out these watchtowers and poking over at Vortex's front base. But this creep spread is ridiculous. He's going to be able to get out a creep so fast. He's already taken his 3rd base. So really, Vortex is going to be feeling to be in a very good position Now the two Hellions do make their way across the map after taking out that first Zergling at that Zelnaga watchtower at the top, now at the bottom, and now we do see these two Queens are going to be able to do some nice little harassment to these Hellions. These Hellions are going to try and do a little bit of harassment to the hatchery. Realize flames don't really burn down buildings very, very quickly. As much of an arsonist as these Hellions would really like to be, it just can't be done in this game very well. So they're going to go ahead and back off, do a little bit of map control. Looks like they're actually going to be able to catch these Zerglings off guard. And I'm really curious how MVP actually noticed that those Zerglings were kind of circling around. But in the meanwhile, ooh, kind of interesting position. This kind of indicates to me that MVP is going to be looking to take a very quick third, as we do see the third already going down for MVP. So he's definitely going to be looking to play that good old macro game. MVP very good in those long macro games, especially as against those Zerg players. Has been shown to be very successful, but we'll end up seeing it looks like quite a few Hellions have been produced, and they are enough to start causing a little bit of havoc among those Queens. And now we do see a couple of additional Zerglings popping, but Zergling speed not quite finished. He has about 5 more seconds, and then these Hellions are going to have a very difficult time trying to deal with this creep. And I don't think that even with a scan, they'd be able to properly take out any of these or all these creep tumors, as there are just so many, and that's easily going to connect that third base. And now it looks like the Hellions are going to be much less useful. Now we do see a Banshee out. It does not have cloak quite yet, so it looks like MVP is going to be waiting for that cloak to finish up, and meanwhile behind it he's going to be saying, I'm going to put on a bunch of this aggression and then I'm going to expand behind. Now we do see a couple of Zerglings running in, actually getting a nice little kill off on those two Marines. They are going to be able to get a good scout off, probably not going to do too much more damage, might take out a couple of SCVs. Oh my god, they're actually being quite effective, but yeah, so that is going to spell an end to that, but still, he did end up seeing that third base, so he knows that MVP is looking to tech out of this. Now we do see these two Banshees coming in. It looks like they have not managed to net any kills quite yet, as this third base is not really quite operational in terms of mining, but it is still being used for that larva. Now we do see that these Banshees are actually not being controlled very well, as the Overseer's out, and the two Queens are managing to pick off these Banshees, and oh no, MVP with a critical mistake. Those Banshees are quite expensive. Now that does actually allow him, just because of the multitasking, it's very difficult to keep up with everything, so he does manage to run by these Hellions into the main, and if nothing else, he has gotten quite a bit of scouting up. He's getting quite a few drone roasts actually as well. Oh my god, that's actually quite wow. We have to see, oh my god, 11 workers killed. Although, you know, for about 10 Hellions and 2 Banshees, I don't think it was quite worth it. I think that MVP is a little bit behind now, and now you can see this massive flood of Zerglings. Oh, actually, wait, I might have spoken too soon. It looks like Vortex, just because as we've seen, he's been producing all these units, has not really gotten that saturation over at that third base. We can see he's just now starting to get that drone count up past 35, and now with another 7 drones, he will be starting to play a little bit of catch up with MVP. And you know, he did a good job shutting down all of that harassment that MVP was going for. But MVP is taking this third, and as long as he can defend, he's going to be in a fairly good economic position. Now, we do have the Mutalisks coming out on their way. That is going to make it a little bit more difficult for these Banshees, or I guess this one Banshee, to do much damage. Now, we also see a Zergling counterattack coming in. Here we do see, oh, actually a really nice barrack scout out. Should see that there are those Mutalisks coming in, and it actually gives them a little bit of additional time to get those SCVs running just a little bit earlier. But unfortunately, where is the anti-air? Does he even have an engineering bay? Oh no, this could spell really bad, just doom for MVP, as if he cannot deal with these Mutalisks, he's going to be in such a difficult position. We do see that the armory is out, so that does mean he has an engineering base somewhere, I imagine. But, oh no, he's losing so many of these workers. We can see now it's dropping down to 42, 41, back up to 42, because he is still producing off of those 3 command center. And with those SCVs running way out of his base, that does give him a little bit of time to produce these missile turrets, but hopefully it will be enough against this Mutalisk flock that is coming back in to do a little bit of harassment. Now, you notice that Vortex is not really reproducing a lot of these Mutalisks. He's not trying to get a massive number of Mutalisks. He's just trying to get enough to do some good damage. Now we do see some repair going down. Is going to ward off those Mutalisks. Does manage to kill off one of them, but not a ginormous amount of damage. just kind of a little bit of poking and prodding. Now we do see some really nice creep spread, and that's definitely going to come back in Vortex's favor for certain, as it is definitely going to delay any kind of push that MVP wants to make, especially since he is going for that mech style. He wants to be very wary about moving out across that map, as actually not really even opting to get any kind of siege tank. So very interesting. Looks like it's just that Banshee Thor play. Now, one thing I will note is that he is getting that +2/+2 weapon and armor upgrades for those Thors, and especially for those Hellions. So they're going to be quite effective, especially against those Zerglings and even those Mutalisks. Now we do see a 4th base going down for Vortex. He definitely wants that gas. He's only now really starting to mine from this 3rd base, only pretty recently, I believe. But for the most part, we are going to have to wait and see how MVP decides to respond. It looks like he's throwing down a 4th command center of his own. We'll end up seeing how this plays out. I don't think that he's going to feel really safe moving out until he gets a bit of a larger army. I imagine at least up until 150 supply, he's going to feel a little bit uncertain about moving out. But now he is starting to mix in a couple of those tanks, so it's going to be very useful if Vortex does decide to reinforce his army with a couple of those Banelings. Banelings, you might not think it, but they are actually quite effective against those Thors, just because they allow the Zerg player to do a massive amount of damage immediately, so it really prevents any kind of repair from going down. And yeah, they can be quite effective, but only in massive numbers, and those siege tanks definitely help to cut back on those massive numbers of Banelings hitting those tanks, or sorry, those Thors. But we do see the Mutalisks trying to do a little bit more poking and prodding around. But the main thing I have to say that these Mutalisks are really providing is kind of just stopping MVP from saying, I'm going to move out across the map now. It does kind of force him to stay back a little bit, build all of these additional turrets, play a little bit more defensively, invest in that rather than just getting the immediate big army. And what that's actually allowing him to do also is stop those Hellions from coming out and just start picking off all these creep tumors, as I assure you MVP definitely wants to do, as again, those creep tumors are definitely going to delay MVP's push, and that's going to give Vortex additional time to do things like get up this Baneling count and also get up these infestors that are just now popping. Now we also see the Greater Spire actually starting, so it looks like that Hive Tech is already finished up. We're going to see whether or not he's actually going to get those Broodlords out in time, as it will take another about 2 minutes for him to get those out. And now we see the massive command centering up from MVP. He's definitely going to be looking to start sacrificing a couple of those SCBs, maybe in 5 or so minutes, I would have to say, just to free up a little bit of supply for his army. And we see quite a few Thors being built up, especially with those 2/2 upgrades. It's going to be very, very deadly against whatever Vortex decides to pop out. Now, you have to remember that these infestors will be quite effective against things like those Hellions that can definitely, or as well as those Banshees for that detection. But it's going to be very difficult to see whether or not Vortex's control is going to be good enough. And you can do things like Neuroparasite, but it doesn't look like, or Neuroparasiting the Thors, but it doesn't look like he's actually going to be going for that. Now, I actually really I'm kind of torn on this play over here. Moving out with the Banshees to pick off a couple of creep tumors, I think it's okay to do with just a little bit of a reasonable distance from your base, but you don't want to get too greedy, as those Mutalisks can come out with an Overseer and really start doing some massive damage. Now we do see that Shark not really afraid of any of the Zerg units. He's just going to waddle around. He's not afraid of the Zerglings around. He's freaking flying, man. Doesn't even phase him. But same time, MVP not really phased by that Zerg army anymore, at least moving into his 4th base. So he's going to go ahead and comfortably move out over there. I think that actually, he might actually be able to hit that creep tumor. Oh, regardless, Ken is starting to just do a little bit of a good setup over here. Now these Zerglings are going to be coming in. See how much damage they can do. They do a little bit of poking. Unfortunately, the siege tanks with those +2/+2 upgrades, soon to be +3, I believe. Yeah, that's definitely going to hurt those Zerglings that are sitting around. I don't think that, it looks like just 2/2 upgrades. Going to be finishing up that +3/+3 pretty soon. But the Broodlords are out, and that's going to allow Vortex to move across the map and start doing some sieging up of his own against these siege tanks. And those siege tanks are going to have to be very careful to make sure that they're not overly sieged. Now, we do see these Banshees coming in. They're definitely going to catch wind of exactly where the army is of Vortex, but it doesn't matter. The siege tanks are starting to fire down on their own Hellions now and being forced to unsiege against these Broodlords, and now the Banshees actually being taken out by those Mutalisks and that Overseer, as I was talking about before. The Planetary Fortress trying to morph in these SCVs trying to repair to keep it alive as long as possible, but the entire army of MVP is moving in. There are quite a few of these Vikings, but oh no, they all get bungled, and I'm not sure that these Viking count is going to be able to handle this massive Broodlord count. Now, we do see the Thor is also doing some very nice damage with those Corruptors, doing a good job picking up all of those Vikings, and if these Thors cannot finish up the battle, it looks like they're not quite able to, and MVP is forced to retreat. The tanks are on such low health, as you can see. They're just being massacred, and even though the ground army for Vortex doesn't really exist anymore, the Thors are really having a hard time dealing with this Broodlord count, but the Broodlord count is starting to diminish slowly but surely, and oh my god, the Hunter-Seeker missiles down from the Ravens do finish up quite a few of those Broodlords, and now the tanks are able to clean up a lot of those Broodlings. It looks like, oh my god, MVP might actually hold over here. The Zerglings coming in. They are starting to take out quite a few of those tanks, though, the Thors, but the Thors are backed up by those tanks, and it looks like, wow, with just one Broodlord left, that's going to be taken out by this Corporal Thor. Presumably will get an upgrade after he manages to take out this Broodlord, potentially. There he is. Now he is a sergeant, happily defending the Terran homeworld and that force base. A very important base, as he definitely needs that, especially to start getting additional reinforcements with those, I guess, 8 gas geysers. 8 gas geysers, very important, as his army is so freaking gas intensive. You can see he was making those Banshees, even those Ravens and those Thors and those siege tanks. Definitely going to be needing that gas, so a great hold from MVP, but we do see another army popping out for Vortex. It's going to be very difficult to hold against round 2, as most of the army that really existed after that engagement was siege tanks. So you have to remember, even though MVP does have a bit of a supply lead, a lot of that is tanks, and they're not going to be quite as effective against these Broodlords. In fact, they could be actually a little bit harmful, considering they're all sieged up, and now we do see the unsieged, the little bit of microing back and forth with those Vikings, trying to do as much damage to those Broodlords as possible. Now we do see that these Broodlords are trying to siege up this planetary fortress that can get repaired if he does. There we go, start to repair it, and now we do see the Hellions kind of moving in, trying to do as much damage to those Zerglings as possible. But the Queen's actually doing a nice job with that massive range, being able to do a little bit of damage to those Vikings. Now we do see that those Vikings are starting to do some good damage, but the Corruptor count is a little bit too high. As we can see over here, only 2 Vikings left, soon to be down to 0. Oh my god, 1 reinforcing Viking that's definitely not going to be enough to this Corruptor count, and these Broodlords are still wearing and tearing against that Thor army, but still the Thors with those Vikings were able to do a substantial amount of damage to those Broodlords. These Broodlords are being forced on the retreat against those 3 Thors, and oh my god, it looks like MVP might hold once again. Wow, those Thors are really proving to be the perfect anti-air unit for MVP in this situation. He's playing this out beautifully, and Vortex, you know, he is sitting on quite a few bases, but eventually MVP is just going to build up such a massive Thor count that he's going to have a hard time being able to just constantly try and do this kind of aggression. It looks like actually MVP feeling comfortable moving outside of his base, trying to catch a couple of these Broodlords that are morphing in right now. Oh my god, look at those Thor volleys doing a massive amount of damage to those morphing in Broodlords, and they managed to take out quite a few, but now the Zerglings are going to come in. That means no retreat for MVP. He has to commit to this engagement, and now these remaining 5 Broodlords are able to clean up quite a few of those Thors, and the Thor count is reset back to just 2, and it might actually be reset back to 1, depending on whether you can keep that 1 Thor alive. No, it doesn't look like it. These Broodlords are actually doing another massive amount of damage, and these 4 Corruptors versus 4 Vikings, it looks like the Corruptors might actually end up winning out unless MVP has some really badass micro, or I guess these reinforcing Vikings. And now we do see MVP looking like he might take another engagement. Oh my god, Vortex just piling on the aggression, but it's just not working out for him. And MVP just showing superior control, superior unit composition, and I guess it has to come down to those unit upgrades as well. These air battles are so important in this game, and we can see that those +1, +0 upgrades are really not working out too well against, I guess, those +3/+3 Thors that are just doing so much splash damage. And even though those Vikings do not have any upgrades themselves, as they are going to be finishing up +1/+1 in a second, it's really hurting Vortex that he does not have the upgrades to match up against those Thors. Now, one thing Vortex does still have going for him is that he still has some pretty good creep spread, and he also has this pretty nice Zergling count that is going to be very effective against this very immobile force of MVP. Unfortunately for him, though, these Hellions are very well positioned. MVP, a Code S, top-notch player realizes that he has his army positioned over in the top right. He's going to send his Hellions down to the bottom left to keep Vortex's army a little bit preoccupied and stop him from really being able to do a full aggression assault on the top left. And there we do our side of the top right, and now we see these Hellions doing a massive amount of damage against those Zerglings, and even the Queens taking a little bit of damage, but some nice transfuse. Actually, wow, quite a few Queens actually coming out, and those Broodlords are definitely going to pop those Hellions back over to their side of the map. Get out of here. We're tired of seeing your blue flames over here. But at the same time, another group of Hellions coming in. This is some great multi-pronged aggression, and even though it's not all happening at the same time, oh my god, look at how effective it is. Just pulling Vortex apart, especially after having thrown those armies over and over and over again at MVP with not much of luck. You can see how much frustrating it must be for Vortex to now just be caught off guard by these simple Hellion harassments at 2 different times. And we can see 85 workers killed. That is an obscene number of workers killed. And now we also have to note that, of course, Vortex feels like he's in a very all-in position. He's down to just 50 drones against 56 SCVs, but still, MVP has those mules, and now we see a massive Viking count. Unfortunately for unfortunately for Vortex, he is only sitting on +2/+0 upgrades, so those armor upgrades really not helping out those Broodlords at all against the +1/+1 Vikings, and they are just massacring those Broodlords. And even though those Broodlords are trying so hard, they were not able to carry out the 4th base. And there is the GG from Vortex. So very well played. Wow, some great play from LGIMMVP, showing that he is still a top-notch Code S level player. And we're definitely going to go ahead and jump into game 2. This is just game number 1. I believe it's a best of 5. It might be a best of 7, but I'm pretty sure it's a best of 5. So we'll go ahead and see you in game 2. Thank you so much for tuning in. Send your replays that you want casted to feardragon64@gmail.com. Please also, more importantly, I'd actually really like it if you leave a comment below addressing any kind of issues. If you can hear, like, my really loud computer fan, trust me, it's obnoxiously loud. If you hear the rain outside, it's pouring right now. If you hear anything, like, I know one thing that I'm definitely quite aware of is the fact that my mouse clicks are very, very loud. I'm looking into solutions for that. But just address any issues that you have with the video, as well as my commentary. So I'd really appreciate that if you could just leave that in the comments below. And also, please go ahead and like, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Twitch TV channel, that's twitch.tv/feardragon64, twitter.com/feardragon64, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and jump into game number 2, guys. It's so good to be back.